The News 4 Rundown starts now.
Good evening and welcome to the News 4 Rundown. I'm Sean Yancey on this Tuesday, June 9th. Here's a look at some of the stories we're following for you tonight. Parental rights are once again on the agenda tomorrow on Capitol Hill, and a Virginia school leader will be on the hot seat. Ted Oberg and the News 4 I-team sat down with the superintendent of Loudoun County Public Schools ahead of what is expected to be a hostile hearing focused on diversity and gender. And then we're going to take you on a trip for a history lesson inside a Maryland park. Our Tommy McFly explains how you can explore historic shipwrecks in a kayak while celebrating America's 250th birthday. But first tonight, Election Day in the district is just 1 week away. Mail-in and early voting is already underway in what could be one of the most consequential election cycles for D.C. residents in decades. But the debut of ranked choice voting means some races may not be decided for days. Similar delays have occurred elsewhere, including in California. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles opened multiple election fraud investigations related to the state's primary election, one day after President Trump made some unsubstantiated claims of widespread fraud. News 4's Mark Seagraves explains why the results here in D.C. could also take days.
More than 26,000 D.C. residents have already cast their ballots, either by mail, drop-off box, or in-person early voting. But election officials expect the majority of votes to come in on Election Day, either by in-person voting or mail-in ballots. Monica Evans, executive director of the D.C. Board of Elections, warns residents to be prepared for delays in getting full results because so many D.C. voters use mail-in ballots and because ranked choice voting, which D.C. is using for the first time, could require several rounds of tabulations to determine a winner.
When you get 20, 30,000 ballots on election night through the mail, it is not possible to process that number on election night. And so that is whether you're using RCV or our traditional way of voting, which would be plurality voting. And so that is why you're not going to have final election results on election night.
Evans says the first thing the Board of Elections must do before going to rounds of tabulations for ranked choice voting is to process and verify every mail-in ballot.
We know for a fact, and we have brought in temporary staff to assist with this, we will have everything processed no later than Saturday the 20th. And so we can expect to do a very first round of tabulation by Sunday, June 21st. So we will continue to update ballots as they come in and voted ballot numbers as they come in.
The rounds of tabulation will be processed for any race where no candidate received 50% of the vote. If no candidate receives 50% after the first round, on the 21st, election officials move to the second and then possibly third rounds of tabulations, where voters' third and fourth choices are then counted.
We will do another round of tabulation, we're thinking on the 24th of June. And then a final round of tabulation will happen on or after the 26th of June, because we can still receive mail ballots that are properly postmarked by June 16th through June 26th.
All of this means residents should be prepared to wait anywhere from 5 to 10 days after Election Day to know all the results. Early in-person voting is now underway, and mail-in ballots can be placed in drop boxes. If you have not received your mail-in ballot by Friday, you'll need to vote in person. In the district, Mark Seagraves, News 4.
All right, we want to make sure you understand everything. So here's a look at some of the key election dates and deadlines in D.C. Early voting will continue through Sunday, June 14th. Those voting centers open from 8:30 a.m. until 7 p.m. each day. The primary election day is next Tuesday, June 16th. And of course, those polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And you can count on News 4 for complete coverage, including results, whenever they come in on the NBC Washington app and at NBCWashington.com. Well, early voting in Maryland starts Thursday, and tonight we're hearing from voters in Prince George's County about what they're focused on as they head to the polls. News 4's Tracy Wilkins recently sat down with a group of county voters. Yesterday, we heard how they rated the overall state of the county and they gave some pretty low scores. In today's conversation, their focus is on the economy.
Loudoun, I want to ask you, what is it that you are looking for in the next candidate?
I will not be voting for incumbents, whether they are seek to transition from one seat to another seat. So no one who is a district seat holder moving into the at-large seat. We unfortunately have had this overtaking of a block for the last few years that we have to break.
Taylor, what is at the top of your list? What is most important to you when you go to vote?
The issue that I want to see addressed, of course, is data centers. I think that that's a big issue for a lot of us in the county.
How concerned are you all about the economy right now? Loudoun, I'm going to start with you.
I think there are about 60,000 federal workers that were impacted by DOGE. What I want to see is a plan. Everybody jumped out with job fairs and resource fairs, but we never had a plan for how to address the potential foreclosures. Have we been working with banks? We did this before in 2008. And so job training opportunities.
One of the things that we have been asking, or I have been asking candidates in all of the debates that I've moderated, is it time for Prince George's County to move out of this need for federal work? Part of the reason that it is one of the wealthiest, predominant African-American counties in the nation is because of this dependency and consistency of federal jobs. Is it time for Prince George's County to move on? Greg, what are your thoughts about that?
We do need to reduce our outright dependence on the federal government, but the federal government does a lot of good, and a lot of that has been hit with a wrecking ball by Trump. But our answer can't be to lock ourselves into the race to the bottom, as we've done with data centers, or by giving some of the richest people and richest corporations in the world massive tax breaks while also deregulating them at our local level.
Chloe, I want to ask you about this, because it used to be that when you were in college, especially if you were from this region, the goal was get a good federal government job.
Actually, yes. I'm a food science and fermentation science double major. And the goal for me when I was applying to colleges was FDA after I graduated, and potentially being in that field of work. And unfortunately, I can't even do that anymore. And I'm seeing a lot of my people who look like me, black women, being forced out of these jobs. And I'm sat here thinking, well, where am I going to go when it's my time to be able to work in the workforce?
Early voting in Maryland begins Thursday, June 11th, and runs through the 18th. The primary there is June 23rd. We're going to hear much more from this panel all week long. In fact, tomorrow they're jumping into a hot topic for our entire region, data centers. One of our panelists recently became a community activist because of this issue, and the panel has some interesting thoughts on how this impacts their vote. All right, now to some of the other stories we're following for you tonight. A judge shot down Virginia Democrats' attempt to implement universal background checks for gun purchases. The bill passed earlier this year required state police to conduct background checks, provide criminal history records for private gun sales, and restrict handgun purchases by teenagers. Two gun rights groups sued to block it and won. Virginia's Democratic majority also passed an assault weapons ban that goes into effect next month. Gun rights groups are also challenging that law. Drought conditions are leading to mandatory water restrictions in Northern Virginia. Residents on the Fauquier County water system are being asked to cut back on the use of water in their homes and to completely stop using water outside. Several other Northern Virginia communities, including the town of Warrenton, have voluntary water restrictions in place. Expect to see some new bus lanes painted along Rockville Pike in Maryland and along Wisconsin Avenue in the district. They're all part of Metro's upcoming Red Line closure that will last for 2 months this summer. The lanes are for shuttle buses needed during this huge closure. From July 6th through September 6th, there will not be any Red Line trains between North Bethesda and Friendship Heights. By the way, the Grosvenor, Strathmore Medical Center and Bethesda stations will all be completely closed. And today, the Capitol Pride Alliance announced the grand marshals for this year's Pride Parade. Singer-songwriter David Archuleta and actress Monroe Elise will headline this year's event. Archuleta rose to fame on American Idol. He finished up as a runner-up in season 7. He came out in 2021. Elise is a D.C. native and trans advocate who's become a viral influencer. The annual Capitol Pride Parade kicks off at 3 p.m. Saturday, June 20th. All right, we are 2 days away from the start of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Team Croatia touched down today in the D.C. region. A crowd of fans cheered them on as they arrived at their hotel in Alexandria. That will be the squad's home base throughout the World Cup. Croatia will practice at a local high school for the duration of the tournament. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is inviting district residents to gather to watch the games at Franklin Park. Those watch parties begin this Friday when Team USA faces Paraguay at 9 p.m. The gates open for the watch party at 6 p.m. And then over the weekend, there will be a watch party Saturday afternoon and 3 matches at the park on Sunday. The following weekend, the fun moves to Tingy Plaza in Southeast. You can find a full list of events from the dcunited.com/soccer celebration. It's going to be a fun time out there. All right, let's check in now with Storm Team 4 Chief Meteorologist Doug Cameron and find out what's going on to see if our nice weather is sticking around. Doug?
Yeah, it was a really nice day out there and a really great start to the week. Yesterday was great. Today was great, as you mentioned. And so we're talking right now about the cloud cover that we've seen across our area. Temperatures today held down again because of the easterly flow and the cloud cover, but we still got to 83 degrees, still right around average. Right now, here we are in the 7 o'clock hour at 79. Notice this, though. This is the big change. Winds out of the south now. All day we've seen winds, and yesterday all day out of the east. Now the southerly direction. That brings our dew points higher. We've seen the dew points climb over the last couple of hours, so you could probably start to feel the humidity. That's going to be the big factor as we work our way into the day tomorrow and especially this weekend. Temperature-wise, 70s here. But back to the west, notice Winchester only at 73. The reason why, we got 80 in Culpeper, 79 in Manassas. But the reason why Winchester's cooler, look at the rain coming through the Winchester area right now. And to Hardee and Hampshire counties right along the I-95 or I-81 corridor. This will move right towards Front Royal, and you're probably starting to see the rain into western Loudoun County and northwest Fauquier County now as we continue to see that rain moving off to the east. I don't think it'll move into the city. It should be weakening by then, but we could see some sprinkles coming on through as we make our way through the next couple of hours. Most of this, though, you can see the trend here is just kind of working its way up towards the north and west. So we'll be watching that over the next few hours. And this is all part of a very unsettled weather pattern from the Great Lakes all the way down toward the Gulf. You can see a lot of cloud cover here, and that is also a lot of moisture, and that's what we're going to be looking at the next few days. So timing this out by early tomorrow morning, notice where we are. Good chance, at least this computer model giving us a good chance of rain pretty much area-wide. Not everybody will see that, but coming through early tomorrow, that's 8 o'clock. Right on through about 9, 10 o'clock, that rain moves out. We get a little bit of a break. That allows us to heat up. I'm going for a high of 87 tomorrow, but you can see where this model is at 89. But look back to the west. Notice these storms working their way through. That's 3 o'clock. They're coming through the area right around 4, 5, 6 o'clock tomorrow, and some of those storms could be strong, possibly severe. So we'll be tracking that too. We'll be tracking severe storm potential again on Thursday, and especially on Friday. I really think tomorrow and Friday have the best chance for severe weather. But look at the heat index on Thursday and Friday. The temperatures rather at 95. Heat index both days, 100 to 105 degrees. Better conditions on Saturday and Sunday. Less humid before we see another chance of storms to start off next week.
Welcome to summer. Doug, thank you. All right, stay right there. News 4, The Rundown. We'll be right back. The superintendent of Loudoun County Public Schools, Aaron Spence, will testify on Capitol Hill tomorrow in a House hearing called Breaking Trust: Attacks on Parents' Rights, Inappropriate Content, and Legal Abuse in America's Schools. Now, since President Trump took office, the school district has been under investigation by the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, and is now the focus of this House Education Committee. Much of it centers on high-profile incidents in Loudoun County school restrooms. Who gets to use them, what happens inside them, and what parents are allowed to know. Before his trip to the Hill, Spence sat down with the News 4 I-Team's Ted Oberg to explain how he sees this parents' rights battle.
So much of the controversy seems to be around gender identity, gender expression, and how that's treated in our schools. Why is that such an issue?
Well, quite frankly, I think people fear what they don't understand. and I think it's driven by a lot of fear and misunderstanding. I think it's really sad because we're talking about a very small number of our students who oftentimes are amongst the most harmed and marginalized students in our schools. And what we try to communicate regularly is that we follow federal law with regards to the treatment of our students.
And to you, what does that mean?
Specifically with regards, you asked about our transgender students, that transgender students have the opportunity to access the private spaces, bathrooms, and locker rooms of their consistently identified gender.
Broadly speaking, what is your idea of what parents are entitled to know?
Generally, everything about their child's education, but they're not always entitled to know anything about somebody else's child's education and what's going on in another child's life. And I think sometimes that's where the conflicts come in.
Last April, Loudoun County gained attention when the district refused to sign a Trump administration certification demanding the elimination of what it called illegal DEI practices or face a loss of funding. At the time, Spence said the district complied with existing law and the new demand was vague. The Department of Justice is now investigating the school district after a student at Freedom High School was accused in May of videotaping boys in the bathroom. The sheriff says that student, a juvenile, has now been charged criminally in connection to the alleged unlawful filming. When you heard about what happened at Freedom, how concerned were you?
Deeply concerned. Anytime we deal with a situation where we may have a predator, in our public spaces, I think anybody would be horrified by that. And of course I am, as a parent and as an educator.
It's the second DOJ investigation in Loudoun. Last year, DOJ concluded the district violated the civil rights of some male students by disciplining them after they raised issues with a trans boy in the boys' locker room at Stonebridge High School. There were plenty of people who saw what happened at Stonebridge and said kids were disciplined for speaking up about their discomfort.
Yeah. What I can say is that we would never discipline children for speaking up about being uncomfortable in a situation.
Are either of those instances examples of a failure of policy at Loudoun schools, and especially policy towards transgender students?
I don't believe that our policies are failing children. I think that our policies are set up to make sure that we follow the law. Bad people do bad things. If the standard in our schools is that nothing bad can ever happen or will ever happen, that's an unreasonable standard.
How do you break through to a parent who says, no, I don't agree with you. That's because you're too permissive. Those happen because your policies allow bad things to happen.
Our policies allow children to use the restrooms. If somebody decides to do something bad in a restroom, that's not something that's preventable based on our policies. And I think there are some folks for whom making Loudoun County the center of a different kind of story is helpful for them. It helps keep them in the news. It helps keep maybe a political agenda in the news. But it's not who we are in reality.
The federal government has threatened to cut millions in education funding to Loudoun County over its gender and diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. But so far, Spence says the county hasn't lost a dollar. But is this a game of chicken?
It's not about playing chicken. It's not about wanting to be the public face of these issues. It's about just wanting to lead a school system, do what's right for our kids and our families, and remember that every single day so many incredible things are happening in our schools, and that's the real story.
Spence said he's not exactly looking forward to testifying tomorrow. He expects some of it to be quite hostile, but he didn't have a choice about whether he could show up. He said he's not nervous. He feels local support. His contract was recently renewed through 2029. We did ask him about any changes that have happened within the district due to these high-profile incidents. He said none specifically, but we'll be watching all of these investigations closely. He's not going to be alone tomorrow. 2 other superintendents from across the country have hot seats as well.
Ted, thank you. Stay right there. News 4, The Rundown. We'll be right back. As we count down to 250 years since American independence, News 4's Tommy McFly is exploring local historic sites outside of the district. Tonight, he's taking us beyond the marble and into the water for a kayaking trip that was full of surprises.
Today we're getting a little history on the water. Hopefully not in the water, but who's to say? In Charles County Parks, Elena, what is this place?
So welcome to Mallows Bay Park. Mallows Bay Park is the gateway into the Mallows Bay Potomac River National Marine Sanctuary. The sanctuary was designated in 2019 and is home to an entire fleet of World War I ships.
And now we're going to learn a little bit about the history?
Absolutely. So Joe with Atlantic Kayak is going to tell you a little bit about the history.
Let's do it. Hey, how's it going?
Great. How are you, Tommy?
I am awesome. Thanks for having us out here. What's the history of these boats?
So these boats were hastily built at the start of World War I. So there was a plan to build 1,000 freighter ships, but ultimately only 300 were built because the war ended so quickly. 200 of which ended up right here in Mallows Bay. They were burned to the waterline because they wanted to recycle the high-grade steel pins and strapping, which we show people when we take them out onto the bay.
So how do we get out there?
So what we're going to do is we're going to take you out on our kayaks. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Shelly, I hear you're going to be paddling me around Mallows Bay today.
Yeah, but you got to help too.
I'll try.
All right.
There we go. So this is Mallows Bay.
This is Mallows Bay, and the ship in front of us is the SS Boone. And she's really cool. She's really important because she was named after Woodrow Wilson's second wife.
Oh.
Most of the ones we have here are the Ferris-style steamship, and that's exactly what this is. And you'll notice a Ferris-style steamship because they have, you see that strapping right there? Mm-hmm. They'll have that X strapping. So remember Joe said that these ships were burnt for their salvage? Well, you can see the planking from the ships, from the outside part of the ship on this particular ballast.
Oh, let's do it.
You know it. We're going to go straight ahead.
We're going to go
straight ahead.
Going into the ship?
No, we're going to go to the ship. We're going to go around the ship.
Through the ship.
We can go in other ships. Let's not go in this ship.
Okay.
Peek behind that bush.
That's cement.
That's cement. You see that planking imprints?
Yeah.
That's from the outside planking of the ship.
If I was getting in a ship, the last thing I would want was cement poured into it.
I don't know, man. You know, it seems to have worked.
It's true.
Now, what we're paddling up to is my favorite ship.
Oh.
So this is the Euphrania. It's my favorite boat, and it's my favorite boat for a lot of reasons. This one has a great propeller bracket. So if you look right here or listen, you hear that?
Yeah.
That, and then listen to this. Okay, so that's the metal that's going to protect the propeller.
So this was where the propeller was. It was this big.
It was
like this big?
Nope, 4 feet.
Like this big.
These had 4-foot propellers. So if you look out all over Mallows Bay and there's vegetation where you think there should be water, that's because that's a ship. As it deteriorates, the sand and silt move in, and because of birds and wind, seeds are deposited. And that's how we end up with these flower pot wrecks.
Wow. It's called flower pot wrecks.
Flower pot wrecks. All right, Tommy, I want to show you something really cool. So I'm going to have you stand up.
Do you have me stand up?
You know it. Let me have your paddle. You can do it. 10-year-olds can do it. You can do it.
Okay.
Stand up nice and gingerly. Come on, Tommy. You can do it.
Whoa. Okay. The altitude.
Don't rock the boat.
What about?
Don't rock the boat, Tommy.
Don't rock the boat, baby.
Don't fall in.
Don't tip the boat over.
Don't fall on the metal pieces. It'll hurt.
All right.
You look over there.
Uh-huh.
And do you see some little things that are about this big?
Yeah. Are those doubloons?
No. I wish. You are looking at where the ceramic toilet would have been on one of these ships.
You had me stand up on a kayak to look at the bathroom?
Oh, yeah, and a tile with 100-year-old pee on it, maybe. All right, Tommy, so we are in Three Sisters Cove.
So calm and tranquil.
I know. When it's windy out there, you just come out here and chill out. It gets hot in the summer, though. So that is an active beaver lodge.
Wow.
And it's quite something to see them out here because they'll come out and they'll flap their tails at you and things like that. And then the other
cool... Beaver.
What do you think we named it?
The beaver ship.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, the beaver lodge ship. This whole area is so special to me because at certain tides you can see it dripping over on the ship, like proving what a wetland does.
Shelly, thank you for sharing this water wonderland with us.
You got it, man.
Are you gonna paddle us back?
I've been doing all the work so far. I think you're on, Pat.
All right, on to the next one. Eventually.
Just relaxing. You know I'm not paddling.
I know. That's good, you shouldn't. Don't paddle.
Look at the turtle.
They look like they had a great time out there. All right, that'll do it for the News 4 Rundown this Tuesday night. Join me and Jim tonight for News 4 at 11. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you back here at 11. We're going to leave you tonight with a live look at Bethany Beach. Can't you believe just a handful of people out there enjoying this beautiful Tuesday evening? Good night.